Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. I am your host, Sean Hayes, here to bring you episode 336 of the podcast that gives you the latest and greatest gaming news of the past week. So, some big news this week. A lot of unhappy news coming out of sort of the financial side of gaming. So we'll be talking about that, and we'll do a review of Hades 2 this week. So I know it launched last week, and basically it's all I've been playing. So if you were hoping for any talk of Final Fantasy Tactics, I haven't even touched it yet. I still am fully engrossed in Hades 2. So yeah, hope everyone's been doing well. So coming off of not playing D&D this evening, as I normally do, but instead, as a backup, we were doing some Lorcana practice. We have our set champs in like 2 weeks, and I will be missing out on a week of League, which is normally when we practice our decks. And it's just been a very short season. So, yeah. So mostly trying to prepare for set championships for Fabled. And I still have no idea what everything is going to look like. So, yeah, trying to figure out the meta right now, or what the local meta is going to be like, is a bit rough. And even trying to figure out how many people are going to show up to the tournament. Because like it's about half full, but we have more spots than we did before. So I don't know if there's going to be like a whole slew of people who show up day of, like as a surprise entrance. So, but anyway, enough about that. Let's get into a lot of this. The news was absolutely ludicrous this week. So let's get right into it. All right, so first up, this is a little bit of fun news, right? We can't just have everything be gloom and doom. But IGN reports that the former audio director, Dan Forden, who is also the voice of the famous Toasty line in Mortal Kombat, is retiring from NetherRealm, formerly Midway Games. Forden famously joined the company in 1989. And so he's been there a long time. So and in a statement, simply said, I've been here a long time. I kind of just want to do something different. Like he just wants to take time for himself and to do that. I don't know. Maybe he's able to comfortably retire, in which case then he can just do what he wants. But yeah, an absolute legend. I mean, Toasty, like, for those who don't know, in Mortal Kombat 2, okay, we're going back to the early 90s. Mortal Kombat 2 came out, and they introduced a sort of mechanic a little bit, or like an event where it's like if you land a big enough hit, basically I believe it's an image, like a pixelated image of Dan Forden pops up, and he yells "Toasty," as like a little like Easter egg type thing. And then they went one step further, and if you enter a code in when he does that, I think that's how you unlock Reptile. Or maybe like another character. I definitely remember I could have sworn that Reptile was involved in like having to enter in a button combination when Toasty was proclaimed. So yeah, it's been part of like Mortal Kombat legend forever. And so I wish Mr. Forden a lovely retirement. Seems like he's earned it, being in the industry for nearly 40 years. With the way the industry is now, I don't blame anybody for wanting to get out on their own terms. So yeah. And speaking of, this next bit of news is certainly why. So Game Informer, and like everybody else, reports that EA is being acquired for $55 billion by an investor consortium composed of the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners. Now, Affinity Partners is Jared Kushner's private equity firm. It really looks like they are doing the private equity thing of like they're going to buy a thing and they're probably going to run it into the ground to then scrap it for parts. Because EA was immediately saddled with $20 billion in debt. And that's just like, that is the MO of private equity, is like they buy a thing, they saddle it with all the debt from the sale, and then like they run it into the ground and then strip it for parts. I've seen it happen far too many times, and it always follows the same trajectory. So, and also, given who the consortium is composed of, we might not see certain titles ever make the light of day again, or say certain like plot lines in titles like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, like BioWare in particular. It might be in a very rough spot with this purchase. And meanwhile, they may just entirely focus on Madden and Football Club. So this is bad. Like this, EA was already not great in terms of its employment practices and its history of, being a terrible place to work. To have that then get hit with the private equity hammer, this is not great. It's not great for the industry. It's not great for EA. It's not great for the people who, for the moment, still work at EA. And unfortunately, this also means that the company is now, or once the sale goes through, and is finalized, EA will no longer be a publicly traded company. So it will be fully private, which means that like shareholders won't have any pressure or won't be able to exert any pressure anymore. Yeah, it's bad. Like I'm all for private ownership because I think that's how you don't then deal with a lot of the endless growth and exponential growth that publicly traded companies have to engage in all sorts of nonsense with to keep up. But it also really depends on who the owners are. And in this case, it's not great. So, notably, Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia is like the sort of financing and like public relations arm of the government. where they just like sink a bunch of money into foreign companies in an effort to boost Saudi Arabia's reputation on the world stage, because they're still trying to reinvent themselves as like Dubai. I mean, there's also like the comedy festival that's coming up, but like that's outside of the scope of what we talk about on the podcast. But it's a similar thing of like trying to make investments into Western companies in an effort to, kind of butter up the global community. But yeah, I mean, whether EA exists in a decade or so, I don't know. My only hope is that the studios that they purchased, like the smaller studios that they purchased, maybe they're able to somehow spin themselves out. Because yeah, this is not a great situation. And like I don't like EA, but I also think they deserve better than this. And that's what I got to say about that. All right. Next up, GamesIndustry.biz reports that Game Pass is getting a 50% price hike. Microsoft claims their PR spin is that this is to offer more, quote, flexibility, choice, and value to all players, end quote. This is absurd. This much of a rate hike. Like, it's one thing, at this point, everybody's kind of used to Netflix like creeping up further and further, but they do it like $1 or $2 at a time, and they just do it regularly. I mean, it is, and I checked the prices, and like for the lower tiers where your monthly rate is fairly low, like in the $10 range, you're looking at now it costing like $15, which perhaps most folks in that range are still comfortable paying it. But now for like the ultimate, you're looking at paying like $30, $35 a month for Game Pass. And that's too much. Like, the argument is that, you're still getting a great deal, but it's only if you play like a lot of games in the course of a month. Like a lot of different games in the course of a month. So I don't know. In full disclosure, I personally do not. Like I don't subscribe to Game Pass. So I don't have as much stake in this. But yeah, it's a big hike. And like paying $30 a month for a game service is a lot to ask. I know people, complain about Nintendo Switch Online and the expansion pass, but in terms of just retro games, I mean the price comparison is, even at its lowest tier, with Game Pass you're looking at like $15 a month. And granted, you're getting newer games, right? But like Nintendo Switch Online, it's $80 a year for the family plan, which you can put 8 people on it, which we do for our plan. So you get seven of your friends, and now you're paying $10 for a year. So you're looking at like $1 a month for that plan. And that you get like basically the back catalog that Nintendo's put up for NES, Super NES, Game Boy Advance. They started doing GameCube, N64. I think they have Genesis up there. But again, it's not. It's a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison, just because again, you're getting newer games with Game Pass. But I think in terms of just games for the dollar amount that you're getting, like for the folks who can afford it, it's still probably a good deal. It's just the fact that I think this would have stung less if Microsoft had decided to do like over the past like 4 years or so, had done regular smaller increases, which is the Netflix model. But I think people are going to reach a breaking point, and I guess folks were hitting the storefront enough that like they were causing it to crash, trying to either check on their subscription or to unsubscribe. And it's like that's not a good look. So yeah. It's a 1-2 whammy of awesome financial news in the gaming industry this past week. Finally, Game Informer reports that Starbreeze, the makers of Payday, have canceled development on. They were apparently working on a Dungeons and Dragons title, codenamed Project Baxter, laying off most of the staff working on it. So I read around like 44 people. And then anyone who's like left remaining is likely going to be reassigned to work on Payday. Seems like Starbreeze has just decided to double down on, we are the Payday studio. We're just going to do Payday. Although like the new CEO called it one of the most, quote, iconic IPs in gaming, which I think is really overselling Payday. Like it might be popular and recognizable, but to call it one of the most iconic IPs, I think kind of leads into overestimating like its popularity, which I think got them in trouble perhaps with Payday 3, where they did not meet their sales goals at all. Like they fell way short. And I guess like there were a lot of problems at launch. So I don't know if they're like looking to just reallocate staff to shore that up. But it seems like, yeah, I don't know if maybe you should double down on a franchise where you maybe didn't do the best job at putting out the most recent title. So and I don't know if the Project Baxter was supposed to have been almost kind of like a virtual tabletop, it looks like, but with like a structured environment to make it more like a game. And I don't know if there's just like other studios that are working on something similar, and they decided like, well, our time's better spent just doubling down on Payday. So, but yeah, obviously, people getting laid off, not great. And I don't know what the ramifications are in terms of like any partnerships with Wizards over this, but it's unfortunate. All right. So that covers our news for this week. Again, it was a lot of financials and kind of gloomy news. Outside of Dan Forden retiring. Well, yeah, I will stipulate. So he's leaving NetherRealm. My assumption, and I am making an assumption, is that he's kind of retiring in that he was just like, yeah, I just want to work on my own stuff. And typically that's what you do when you retire. I don't know. He may go to a different studio and to do something, or he may like establish his own studio. I don't know. Both seem like not smart things to do in this day and age. And instead maybe work on like just personal projects. But so yeah. So to wrap up that, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about Hades 2. All right, so we talked about this as a news item last week where it launched. But man, is this game great. I enjoyed I really enjoyed the heck out of the first game. This is a great example of like taking the success that you had and then building upon it to make like an even better experience. So like it really moves forward with a lot of the gameplay. So it keeps all of the same mechanics and the main systems, and then it just expands like the subsystems even further. And so there's a lot of variety in terms of your builds and your play style. So like the first game, you have a variety of weapons. Each of the weapons, you can unlock a variety of aspects, which give the weapons different traits that you can augment. So that right there is, and each one has, I think, like three or four aspects. So now you're looking at already like, let's say 3, and let's call it 18 different combinations right there, or 18 different possibilities. Right off the bat, like the base staff, which is the first weapon that you get in the game. When you unlock aspects, your special attack deals more damage and your maximum magic goes up. Whereas, one of the aspects that you can unlock is like the aspect of Circe, where that causes your familiar to also cast. And when you do, it creates a tether between the two of you that damages anybody that it touches, right? So already, like, you still have the same basic moveset, but the staff is augmented in such a way that it changes your playstyle. And so all the weapons do this to give you like different playstyles from there. The boons return, like the Olympian boons, the Daedalus hammers. So you that have those upgrades to help kind of customize your run. But this also adds Arcana, which are sort of like your permanent upgrades. And you can swap around some stuff. It does seem like you have enough points where you can just like fill out most of the Arcana map. Or fill out most, like unlock most of the Arcana cards and activate them. But these also provide like passive benefits. So this is how you get like more revives in a run, or like more maximum health and magic, or you heal in between every room. You start with more gold, or you get rerolls. So that's another element for customizing. Because like you can turn stuff off, if you want a more challenging run. And I think there's like a couple prophecies or like maybe like higher fear tiers that require you to turn off your Arcana cards in order to get them. So like lots of customization. And then the fact of the matter is that you have like double the game, because you can either do an underworld run or you can do an overworld run. And like they both tie into the story. And it's assumed that like you start with doing underworld runs and then you eventually like unlock the ability to go to the overworld, and then later you eventually unlock the ability to like be able to actually do an overworld run and not have to worry about like managing your health. So yeah, I mean, mechanics wise, game's great. I'm starting to get into like a little bit of the nitty gritty of like, what boons to combine with what, and like how certain mechanics work, like Scorch, and what specific daedalus enchantments for your weapons to pick up based on certain builds, and what boons combine with what enchantments, and yada yada yada. I mean, story-wise, I'm kind of at a where I have completed both Underworld and Overworld runs. So I think it's now just like collecting materials to further advance the plot. So right now it's just like you're encouraged to just like play the game, and kind of setting your own goals, which I like. Characters are pretty well written, I think. They definitely have like it's interesting to see like an evolution from characters in the first game into this game. There's definitely been like some growth for a lot of characters, like a lot of NPCs. And then like the new cast of characters that come in are all great. Like it's such a weird, like refreshing change. Like in the first game, you would come back to Hades, and he would like just admonish you and talk down to you and chastise you because of it was an antagonistic relationship between Zagreus and Hades. And in this one, like, because you're all fighting against a common foe, like if you fail a run and you come back, you're offered reassurance from Hecate, which I think is just really nice. And as far as the voice, like Amelia Tyler comes back from Baldur's Gate 3 to do Hecate's voice, and she's great. So it's really nice to see her back in for this role. But yeah, there's a couple of gods that don't come back right away, that you have to unlock them. I don't want to spoil anything to get into too much more. But it's like you have to fulfill certain conditions in order to unlock them. But yeah, there's sort of evolution from the past game is interesting to see, and how they're reacting to like the current situation, the current plot. So I'm having a ball with it. I'm gonna continue playing it, until I get my fill, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. At which point I will switch over to Final Fantasy Tactics. So we might not have any other reviews for a while. It all depends on whether I can find some time to play other games. because I did get a Storyfold from the folks who made Mythwind. So it's like a solo board game. But yeah, I'm just gonna be playing Hades 2 for the foreseeable future. It's great. I even trying to attempt to do the same build every time. That is enough of like a goal for me to do. It also helps that like it just works. So, um, I tend to prefer. So this is getting a little bit into the nitty gritty, but like, um, I prefer Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, who provides you with lots of like fire boons and doing scorch stuff. So scorch is like a damage over time that like when it ticks for like a set amount, and then it reduces like its damage by that amount. So like it's gradually diminishing more and more. But of course you can like apply more stacks, and then like each of those will tick down independently. Also Hephaestus. Hephaestus, a great character design in this game. And his stuff is like every X number of seconds, you get a big boom. And everyone likes big booms. So doing that's been fun, and just like looking for little synergies, interactions between different gods. Duo boons show up more often in this game, so that's always fun. They also introduce infusions, which is boons that augment or that give you special abilities based on like the number of elements that you have, which is a new feature. So like each boon has a corresponding element tied to it. But you can also farm up elements from the field when you've upgraded like collecting tools. So yeah, you're not able to like fish until you unlock the fishing rod. So as with the first game, there is fishing. So there is fishing in this game. I'm not a big fan of the fishing system in this game, which is you're just doing like a quick time event of just waiting for the bobber to get dragged down into the water. But I'm okay to let it go, because this is an action roguelike, everybody action adventure roguelike. So it's intended to be pretty fast paced. I'm okay with it not having a great fishing system. I'm not gonna have that knock my review of it. So, but yeah, I think all in all, I again, fantastic game. The art's great, it runs well. The music's great, character writing is great, character designs are fantastic as usual. It goes to show that when a developer at least seems to care very much about the product that they put out and care about its employees, and not just employee, but like also contractors that they might be working with. Like Supergiant just consistently puts out good work. And it's because they care. So, I certainly think the games industry would be even better than it is now if a lot of the larger companies kind of went back, like took a step back and said, do we actually care about the quality? Like, are we more concerned about putting out the best product that we can, as opposed to being more concerned with, are we going to hit our quarterly growth goal for profit? because, then if they did, I think people who play games would be in an even better place than we have it now. So, hats off to Supergiant. I'm not going to take my hat off, but kudos to them for and thank you. Not that any of them listen to this podcast, but a thank you for once again making such a great game. This took them 4.5 years to make. When they probably already had an engine from the first game. So it just goes to show the amount of work that they put into this. And I remember when it was in early access, and it was not patch notes, but it was like a release that talked about adding a whole nother run, and it was wild. That goes to show that they felt confident enough to put more content into the game. Because they could have left it at a single run like they did with the first game, and I still think it would have been totally fine. But yeah, then they chose to do 2 paths. And both paths are very different. It's not just a whole bunch of underworld stuff. So, well, folks, that is going to wrap up this week's episode. If you haven't played Hades 2, you owe it to yourself to remedy that. But I mean, it might be a while before it goes on sale. Just released last week. It's available on Steam, and I believe Switch and Switch 2 have a console exclusivity for a while. However, physical version does not drop until November. So if you do care about wanting to get it on physical, you do have some time. But it's great. Now that said, we're going to wrap things up for this week. Thank you all for joining me. As always, if you would like to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, go check out 8bitadventures.com using the number 8. If you'd like to help support that content, the best way to do that is to become a patron over at patreon.com/8bitadventures. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all of my current patrons for their continued support. Thank you. For actually really helping to keep the lights on. And finally, our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his stuff over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. So, on that note, we're going to sign off for the night. And as always, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.